People have very busy lives these days, working extra hard to keep roofs over their heads and food on their tables. Those are the lucky ones, or so we're led to believe. Life in this particular dog-eat-dog system can be stressful. We have been trained by behavioral experts to live our lives as expendable cogs, upholding a cruel and vindictive machine, all for the benefit of a dominant minority of ruthless, elitist criminals at or near the top of the pyramid. Powerful psychopaths who can engineer world wars or bring down entire economies whenever their global business plan requires it. And they do. This anti-human system we collectively choose to maintain focuses on the perpetual need for money, so as to avoid becoming homeless and destitute. Rather than working for humanity and focusing on the ability of human beings to work together for the benefit of all, great or small, it also tolerates the kind of doublethink foreseen by George Orwell, whereby liars and criminals in government can ignore public opinion and keep secrets for the sake of national security, apparently, while making outrageous claims about openness and honesty, and patting themselves on the back for the wonderful service they are doing humanity by exporting democracy to the Middle East. And we ain't seen nothing yet. The New World Order that we see unfolding used to be merely hinted at by the various strategically positioned front men and women. Nowadays it is discussed semi-openly by today's front people, and can no longer be ignored by the human beings who happen to be alive today. The powers behind those front people want to utilize the technology that has been made available to the general public to have us all numbered, and to have us believe that it's all for our own good. That way we can all be monitored more easily, and believe it's all for our own safety. Enter the Verichip Corporation, currently calling itself Positive ID, the implantable microchip company. Today, IBM is closely associated with Positive ID, the implantable microchip company, as well as the dream of a global smart system of total and constant surveillance of everything and everybody, cunningly marketed as harmless Uber efficiency, as one would expect. In reality, what little remains of our freedom is under attack. For the good of humanity, this process must not only be stopped, it must be reversed before it's too late.
Let's build a smarter planet.
The right to privacy, for example, and everything that goes with it, is slowly disappearing down the memory hole, aided by the social conditioning provided by incomprehensibly popular reality television programs, in which fame-hungry members of the public and/or ailing celebrities are continuously filmed being pointless in exchange for their 15 minutes of synthetic fame. Mockery disguised as irony dictates that the most successful of them all is called Big Brother. What else? The all-seeing eye is of course present in the form of a logo, not only in the program itself, but also of the production company, End 'em All, keeping an eye on the end of them all. Interestingly, the contestants on the Spanish version of Big Brother were called on to promote the introduction of the VIP Verichip at the Barcelona Baja Beach Club in March of 2004. The idea is that once you agree to have a microchip implanted in your arm, you can access the VIP area. And never again will you be dragged down to the level of having to deal with the monstrous inconvenience of carrying money around, or a credit card. People, nay, VIPs, can choose to pay for their drinks with implanted chips instead. Presumably this opportunity is available to everyone, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. There's another Baja Beach Club in Rotterdam, Holland, playing the same fiddle. Managing Director Joe Van Galen sees no problem at all. He believes that in 20 years' time, it will be normal to be chipped at birth. It seems that many people are more interested in the latest gadget or fashion accessory than their rights and their freedom. Too many of us simply don't think about rights, as long as we can be left alone to get on with our lives. But therein lies the problem. This vision of the architects of the New World Order doesn't involve leaving us alone to get on with our lives. It's about dictating to us what is no longer permissible, how we will be allowed to live our lives, and eventually, whether we will be allowed to live our lives.
You must all know half a dozen people at least who are no use in this world, who are more trouble than they are worth. Just put him there and say, "Sir or Madam, now will you be kind enough to justify your existence?" If you can't justify your existence, if you're not pulling your weight in the social boat, if you're not producing as much as you consume, or perhaps a little more, then clearly we cannot use the big organization of our society for the purpose of keeping you alive, because your life does not benefit us and it can't be of very much use to yourself.
The right to walk around without a microchip implant seems pretty safe right now. But would that still be the case if people without implants somehow came to be in the minority? Or if the infrastructure of the entire planet ever came to be based on the assumption that people do have an implant? Indeed, that seems to be the direction in which Kevin Haggerty, writing for the Toronto Star, sees the system moving. In an article released in December of 2006, Haggerty explained how he believes the microchipping agenda will unfold, predicting a number of interesting scenarios, one of which was that having a chip will be a precondition for engaging in the main dynamics of modern life, such as shopping, voting, and driving. It would be prudent to introduce preventative legislation worldwide to avoid ever being obligated to accept a microchip. Human beings certainly have a moral right to not be chipped like animals. It's up to us to ensure that we have a legal right as well, and to insist that it stays that way for all time. And maybe we also need to think about other ways in which people could be caused to take a microchip implant other than by a legal requirement. Verichip Corporation has been known to be less than honest in its relatively short history, but CEO Scott Silverman dabbled in a bit of truth in the following exchange from an appearance on NBC News.
You hear the sound in the background, people saying, "Big brother, too much information, a little scary." How do you respond to that?
Well, it's interesting. I used to get that question a lot 2 years ago. Today, we've gotten it a lot less. In fact, the Attorney General of Mexico and some of his staff have received this chip for security purposes. And when the acceptance rate of the product goes up significantly like it has, some of the privacy concerns go down. But to answer your question directly, Lester, what most people are concerned with is the invasiveness of this, that it goes in your body. And as we know with pacemakers and other medical devices, that when people accept it for its applications and for its ability is when it'll work its way into society. It won't be tomorrow, it won't be next week, but 2, 3, 5 years from now, slowly but surely it'll work its way into the mainstream.
In this fine-tuned performance, Silverman is talking about gradualism. He is revealing a strategy of long-term thinking based upon achieving the gradual normalization of what at first appears, correctly, to be a diabolical attempt to reduce each and every human being to a component in a massive human inventory, a mere vessel for the Verichip to be used in conjunction with an anti-global smart system of Nazi war crime facilitators, IBM. The bad news is that the process of slowly but surely working its way into the mainstream took a big step recently, as the implantable chips were marketed as a one-size-fits-all solution to a hypothetical problem involving some sort of inability to access medical information without a microchip implant.
HealthLink is always with you when every second counts in the emergency room, providing immediate access to your medical records.
Because Bob has trouble remembering all his medications.
Because I'm in love with my kids' kids.
Because my car lost control while driving.
Because now I'm looking out for both of us.
Because I have diabetes, but it doesn't have me.
Because I spend my life in the ER trying to save yours.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the pond lives Professor Kevin Warwick of Reading University in England. Warwick often appears on TV or in the newspapers, promoting himself and his beloved microchip implants. He even turns up in the extra features of a Doctor Who DVD, promoting the idea of a world inhabited by cyborgs, an interesting avenue of self-promotion, given the evil nature of the Doctor Who villains, known as the Cybermen. Longing to be perceived as a courageous pioneer of biblical importance, Warwick seems dangerously keen on using his own work with microchip implants as a stepping stone to a national, nay, international chipping program. Indeed, in 2002, electronics expert Bernard Albrecht felt compelled to report Warwick to the General Medical Council, the local social services, and the police, arguing that there was a possible case for assault in the event of an operation without medical basis being carried out on a child, i.e. implanting a microchip. But such problems tend to disappear for those people whose work is in perfect alignment with the pre-existing agendas of the powers that be. Warwick went on to appear in a Channel 4 documentary in the UK in April of 2008, openly encouraging a frightened young mother to chip her children. The woman had been terrified by the unprecedented mainstream media coverage of the seemingly futile search for poor little Madeleine McCann. The young mother's enthusiasm for Professor Warwick's script was such that we were left with the impression she might have kept her little girl locked up in a darkened room until she turned 21. That is, if a man with a suitably impressive job title had suggested it.
Anyone could be around or snatcher or, you just don't know. From here to my house away, I suppose it could really happen.
You don't know who's out there because they could be spying on you or watching you. It's good though because Mum's always thinking of ways to keep me safe.
It was my mum that said about chipping. I'd mentioned the fact that, if kids get taken, isn't this thing with Maddie awful? And she said, I'm going to look into it. And I said, yeah. And she found this guy who was doing it. If they ever did get snatched, at least you'd be able to turn the tracker on and find out where they are. So, yeah, I would definitely go for chipping myself. Want the chipping, as soon as it's devised, and that's what I want. So I'm going to get these kids chipped for my peace of mind. Oh, he's not happy.
It was also noticeable that Warwick chose not to share with the little girl's mother the fact that microchip implants have been linked to tumors in research animals. But parents who want to know more about the potential risks that such implants would pose their children, and to themselves, can start by looking at Dr. Catherine Albrecht's websites.
Now, this is a slide from an industry consortium called the Auto ID Center that wants to promote the use of these tiny tracking devices, the RFID tags, for a variety of different reasons. Perhaps the most disturbing of them, in addition to counting humans, would be to count and number every item on the planet and use it to replace the barcode. So physical items could actually be identified and numbered and linked from a distance and tracked. Now, one of the things on this slide that they talk about is it would take 23 bits, that's the numerical information it would have to contain in that tiny speck of dust-sized chip to number every automobile on the planet. It would take 29 bits, or zeros and ones, a string of 29 zeros and ones, to number all the computers. And here's the creepy part. It would only take 33 zeros and ones to give a unique identifying number to every human being on the planet. So 001, 011, do that 33 times, and you've got a unique number for everyone. Now, the disturbing part here is that this industry consortium, which consists of some of the biggest global companies in the world, including Procter & Gamble, including Johnson & Johnson, Kimberly-Clark, International Paper, big companies, Coca-Cola, these guys should be thinking about products, and yet on here they're naming human beings. So this technology, with all of this backing, by the way, the Department of Defense and the U.S. Postal Service are also backers of this technology. The fact that they're putting human beings on their slides and their internal documents as a way to utilize this technology is a little bit worrisome. And definitely by putting one of these numbers into one of these verichips and implanting it into a human being, you could verify them. You could have a number associated with them. You could link that number up to a database, and you could require them to present that in order to buy or sell for the reasons that we talked about. The company producing these chips is a company called Alien Technology, and you can't really see it very well, but it's got, I think, one of the creepiest logos I've ever seen. It's black, it's got red on a black background. It has what looks like almost 3 claw marks sort of screeching across the screen. And in fact, most of the imagery associated with this technology is quite dark. At a conference I attended about 2 months ago, there was a gentleman from Philip Morris talking about this technology. He was talking to a bunch of global executives from global companies who deal with moving products around. And he was telling them, when this comes out, when we have radio devices and everything, when we're tracking everything all over the planet, you're going to need to really change the way you run your warehouse in your back room. And do you know what he said? And he meant this in terms of you're going to have to totally change the way you do business and revolutionize your thinking about moving products. But his statement was, this technology will destroy our way of life. The purpose of this technology is to destroy our way of life. Now, it's interesting because in his saying that, the whole room went silent. By the way, these are people who love the idea of tracking things as they move around, but even then the room went silent because that was a pretty heavy statement. And I don't think he meant that it's going to absolutely destroy our way of life as we live day to day, but I also don't think he realized the symbolic importance of what he had said. Because if we do actually number every human being, and if we do number every physical item, and if we can keep track of all of that through databases and through computer systems, it will actually destroy our way of life. There will be no more freedom. There will be no more privacy or no more ability to walk around and even talk to other people freely. because your every move will be monitored and tracked. All right, there's the chips. And these devices, as I said, this industry consortium, they've already begun appearing, these radio frequency devices, in consumer products. What you're seeing here is a package of Gillette razor blades that's been equipped with one of these unique numbers, making it trackable from a distance. The purpose here was shoplifting prevention, but ultimately they want to put one of these on every physical item that we buy, meaning that not only would you be identifying yourself with your chip as you made your purchase, but all of the things you bought would also be identified with you, linked in a database. And in essence, it would make it difficult in a world where, let's say, there is the mark of the beast, and you've got a brother-in-law who is maybe willing to take the mark of the beast and give you the stuff that he buys so you can survive. In a world like that, if he bought a shirt, paid for it with his mark, and then handed it to you, that shirt could be tracked at a distance. It could be identified as you walk through a doorway, and they could say, hey, wait a minute, you're not Joe Schmo. You don't have the chip in you know, this. In fact, now we've identified you as being the guy who's in trouble for not taking the chip, and now we're going to scan everything you're wearing, and we'll know where you got it, and we'll know who your accomplices were who helped you obtain these items. All right. Now, one of the things that's going to have to happen globally, in addition to identifying everyone, linking everyone with the satellites and the database and the number of payment systems, getting everybody using credit cards away from cash and getting everyone to identify themselves, is have it be universal and standardized. And there is a massive push right now in industry and in retail to do that. It's called oneness. And in fact, this is from the Retail Systems 2003 in Chicago, creating oneness among systems, supply chain, and business. And the idea is that everything will be standardized.
As we have already seen in previous films and shorts, there is a disturbing move towards chipping the population, fronted largely by a couple of prominent mouthpieces so far. In addition to this, there's a fascinating interview with the late filmmaker Aaron Russo, in which he discusses the friendship that he once had with Nick Rockefeller of the banking dynasty.
The whole agenda is to create a one-world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is getting me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do, what
everything.
you sell.
Everything is in there, you know? And so they want a one world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people, and you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their intentions.
So that's where they want to take us. The question is, how do they intend to take us there? The answer is simple: propaganda. There are various different kinds of propaganda coming at us from all angles, in movies and TV shows, and the adverts between the TV shows, and books, and magazines, and music, and fashion, basically in every corner of what Oscar-winning actress Susan Sarandon once referred to as the culture creation industry. Propaganda is not necessarily about lying to people, although clearly that does happen, but it is about manipulating people, both individually and on a societal level, so as to influence their beliefs and ultimately their behavior towards the desired outcome. Today, this science is beyond the levels of past masters like Pavlov and Skinner, and we are indeed manipulated with scientific precision. When considering the scale of this particular beast, one wonders what a world without propaganda would be like, but that's a different video and a vastly different world. One of the most influential figures in the recent history of propaganda is Edward Bernays.
One day, Mr. George Hill, president of the American Tobacco Company, or the largest, maybe the largest tobacco company extant at that time, called me in and said, we're losing half of our market. And I said, why, Mr. Hill? He said, there's a taboo of men, there's a taboo by men that does not permit women to smoke, either in public or even at home. what can we do about breaking down that taboo? I said, have I your permission to see a psychoanalyst? He said, what did it cost? I said, let me ask. So I called up Dr. Brill, who was one of the great disciples of my uncle Sigmund Freud, said, what did it cost, Dr. Brill, for me to have a little conference with you on a question that is of importance to the people whom I'm working with? And he said $125, which at today's purchasing power would be about 20 times that. So I went to Dr. Brill and I asked him what cigarettes meant to women. And let me say in parenthesis that cigarettes at that time were not regarded as dangerous to your health, because that had not been found out yet. In fact, they were regarded as symbols of manhood. Little boys smoked them to prove that they were older than they were. And they were regarded as symbols of importance in the society, giving pleasure and so on. So I went to Dr. Brill and asked him what cigarettes meant to women, and he answered very quickly, cigarettes are torches of freedom to women. They want to smoke to dramatize man's taboo against women by not permitting them to smoke, and that's why they want to smoke. And then he added as an afterthought, and they titillate the erogenous zones of the lips. Here I had my $125 worth of knowledge. What could I do with that information? I decided that there were 2 days of freedom in the United States. One was July 4th, political freedom, but that was no good because people were in the country using firecrackers to celebrate the day. They were permitted at that time. This was some 50 years ago. The other day was Freedom of the Spirit, Easter Sunday, and it occurred to me that any young debutante who was aware of the times and of herself as a woman being discriminated against would be delighted to walk in the Easter parade with her bow to dramatize the idea that cigarettes were indeed torches of freedom, and to validate and to invalidate the taboo against women smoking. So I called up a debutante friend of mine, asked her to get another friend and 2 young men whom they liked, and I also instructed them on how to give information about what they did to the newsreels, weekly newsreels, to the newspapers, to the 3 important press associations, the AP, the United Press, and International News Service, and to walk from 34th Street to 57th and back and forth, lighting torches of freedom to protest man's inhumanity to women by a taboo against smoking. Next morning, there wasn't a newspaper in the United States, even the New York Times had a front page story, debutantes light torches of freedom to protest man's inhumanity to women by a taboo against smoking, lighting cigarettes in their walk. The interesting thing to me was that within 3 days, the newspapers, without any intercession on my part, published accounts that women were smoking in Union Square in San Francisco, in Union Square in Denver and on the Boston Commons, and to my surprise, within 6 weeks, on their own, without any intercession on my part, the League of Theaters, which had a ban on women smoking in the smoking rooms under the orchestras of every good theater in New York, lifted the ban and women were allowed to smoke. That obviously set a trend, and the Surgeon General's statement that cigarettes were dangerous to your health did not come out until about 30 years later.
In his book entitled simply Propaganda, Bernays wrote, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men that we have never heard of. We are dominated by the relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind, who harness old social forces and contrive new ways to bind and guide the world." Keep in mind that we're not talking about marketing cigarettes here or increasing the sales of a particular brand of washing powder. This is about persuading the public to accept the idea of sticking a microchip into their bodies, indefinitely. And ideally, from the perspective of propagandists and their masters, the public will be made to want to be chipped. This is a huge task, even for the Bernays and company of this generation. It would require long-term strategies. Minds would have to be prepared for that well in advance. When it comes to such preparation of the mind, one important technique is to influence how people perceive the future, and thus what they expect from the future, and how they will think and behave in that future. It's called predictive programming. Basically, a fictional story set in the future, or perhaps in a galaxy far, far away, incorporates ideas and/or technologies that are actually planned to take place in reality by the people who plan these things, so that in real life, when these events are close to transpiring, it all seems familiar to the programmed audience. There is a feeling of inevitability that would not have existed had it not been for the predictive programming, and the victims feel less inclined to object because it's designed to appear as though it's all unfolding naturally, uncoordinated and unscripted. This manipulation of the mind is carried out by the best perception builders that money can buy. As Alan Watt of CuttingThroughTheMatrix.com explains, we are effectively being farmed.
So it's a beautiful world, this road to progress, this destiny of progress. It's never been defined to the public exactly where you're going, and that's not by chance. Although it is told to you legally through movies and novels, and even songs, because that's called predictive programming, because legally they must tell you what they're doing. And they do all the time in the movies and novels and music. Plato described the whole technique. Today we call it a form of indoctrination, predictive programming, which means that through fiction, or through when you think you're enjoying yourself, through being entertained, undercover, entertain comes from tin, the cover. When you're under the cover, your sensor part of your mind is not working. And when it's not working, you're unaware that you're being downloaded like a computer. And so all the little emotional techniques that you use, and you're identifying with the hero or the female with the heroine, and there's people in between these days, and all that kind of stuff. Once you start identifying with the characters, they've got you, because they can take you anywhere, no matter what that character does, because as long as you identify this much with them, they can take you that much into where they want you to go emotionally. And so when the real things start to happen in your own life, you say, well, this is kind of familiar to me. And you don't object to it. Because you're thinking, well, I guess it's the only way we could go in society in this particular area. I guess it's a natural evolution. But no, your mind was prepared, because these guys are the shepherds, you know. They have another bunch of slaves and scientists that work for them who do this mind control business, and And they farm us to an extent. First of all, they know what they want to grow in this field, the particular crop they want to grow, and how high, and how many. And they first prepare the land, they cut the brush, they plough it, they harrow it, they do all the necessary groundwork, and then they sow the seed and watch it grow, you see, and cultivate it. Well, that's what they do with your mind in preparation for every event that will happen in your life, every major event in your life. You've seen it all through movies, especially in this day and age, and in the last century it was primarily, well, in the 20th century, it was primarily novels and stage plays and music halls, etc. But today it's in everybody's TV, the one-eyed set, the Lie of Lucifer, Ra, the Tell Levi Zion. And they program it right into you through entertainment, and then you see it happening in real life, and you think, well, I guess that's okay, it's sort of natural, isn't it? And you don't think any more beyond that. Where did that idea come from in the first place? It's marketed to you through entertainment. And that's the prime reason for entertainment, is not for you to sit and have music while you chew the grass like good little sheep. It's to program you.
This technique of predictive programming is being used to condition us to accept the idea that microchip implants are inevitable, even desirable, and it has been going on for decades. The chances are that some of you will have been blissfully unaware of this technique until now, as I was until I happened to stumble upon somebody who knew about it and wanted to pass it on. Hopefully this pass it on process will also involve some of the family and friends or associates of the people who are watching this film, and so on.
Well, you know how these things start. One guy tells another guy something, and then he tells two friends, and they tell two friends, and they tell their friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. You know how these things go.
There are many examples of predictive programming for the microchip implant agenda. Some are more subtle than others. If you watch movies at all, it is likely that you have been exposed to some predictive programming yourself. Here are a few examples. The opening scene of Logan's Run shows a newborn baby with a crystal implant in the palm of his hand. What was it that the managing director of the Baja Beach Club in Rotterdam said?
I think that within 20 years when you get born you will get a chip.
Later in the movie, the implant begins to flash when somebody reaches the age of 30. This is their time for renewal.
Clear, Francis.
Incidentally, a remake of this movie is currently scheduled for release in 2012. In Fortress, each prisoner has an intestinator implanted, a device designed to inflict severe pain or death for any violation of the prison rules.
Prepare intestinator tagging.
You are about to be outfitted with intestinators. Mentel Corporation's automatic behavior control device. Observe all rules. Be especially observant of the yellow and red line. Crossing a yellow line will result in pain. Crossing a red line will result in death. Crime does not pay.
I have an illness. Now, it's called claustrophobia. It's a real illness. Come on. Don't do this! No.
Remain in line. Do not cross the yellow line.
Nobody listens! I got a note from my doctor.
Yellow is pain.
Look, I can't stay here! Will you listen? Will you please listen to me?
Your intestinator is now in pain mode.
Turn it off! Come on, you can turn it off!
Do not cross the red line. Red is death.
An article from May 2009 carrying the headline, "Saudi Killer Chip Implant Would Track Eliminate Undesirables," suggests that the intestinator has arrived. And Demolition Man, San Angeles, 2032, is a highly ordered society in which everything that has been categorized as bad for you, salt, smoking cigarettes, etc., has become illegal.
You got the salt over there, Bob?
Salt is not good for you, hence it is illegal.
Sir, John Spot.
Every citizen has a microchip implant, including a freshly thawed John Spartan, played by Sylvester Stallone, who has been frozen and reprogrammed in a cryogenic prison.
Waiting for commands. Voice check, Lenina Huxley. Unfortunately, Simon Phoenix was not coded. While you were sleeping, everyone in the city was installed code. It was a brilliant idea by Dr. Cocteau that an organically bioengineered microchip be sewn into the skin. Sensors all over the city can zero in on anyone at any time.
I can't even conceive a visual of what you police officers did before it was developed.
We work for a living. This fascist crap makes me want to puke.
What do you think you're scratching, caveman? You really think we'd let you go without control? Your code was implanted the second you thawed.
Why didn't you just shove a leash up my ass?
Mediator. No matter how Viking you are.
There are various references to Huxley's Brave New World in this movie, which was published 100 years before the year in which the movie is set.
That's a brave new world. Sorry, you gotta go.
In The Phantom Menace, the first Star Wars prequel, a young Anakin Skywalker mentions the fact that every slave has a transmitter implanted in them, which explodes if he or she tries to escape.
All slaves have a transmitter placed inside their body somewhere.
I've been working on a scanner to try and locate mine.
Any attempt to escape.
And they blow you up. Boom!
Ha, word!
I can't believe there's still slavery in the galaxy. The Republic's anti-slavery laws are...
The Republic doesn't exist out here. We must survive on our own.
Given that Star Wars is one of the most popular movies ever made, and that The Phantom Menace was released 16 years after the third installment, Return of the Jedi, this may well have been the most eagerly anticipated movie in the history of cinema. The words of a young Darth Vader must have seeped into the subconscious minds of millions upon millions of persons. In The Matrix, Agent Smith releases a bug that wriggles its way into Neo's body. Trinity removes the bug just before the infamous red pill, blue pill scene, which references both Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz.
Relax. Come on. Come on. It's on the move. Oh, shit. You're gonna lose it. No, I'm not. Clear.
That thing's real!
The concept of living inside a computer-generated simulation could also be an example of predictive programming, which is not unique to The Matrix. An interesting side note is the fact that the name Neo, combined with Anderson, translates as the new son of man.
This can't be. Be what? Be real? Let's go. Now.
The first line of Kevin Haggerty's Toronto Star article from December 2006 reads, "By the time my 4-year-old son is swathed in the soft flesh of old age, he will likely find it unremarkable that he and almost everyone he knows will be permanently implanted with a microchip." So the technique of predictive programming is certainly not confined to the TV movie industry. In the BBC drama The Last Enemy,
Smaller than a grain of rice.
the British Home Secretary reveals her own microchip implant and announces that
It's an ID that can't be lost or forged or stolen. Its content and function can be adapted to suit my needs. It can be my credit card, it can be my door key, my car keys. I'll never lose them again. Eventually, it'll become universal. Starting at school age, a tag for life. It'll be easy to update. You won't have to keep renewing it.
Another notable soundbite is the assertion that the microchip implant
It will give back to the honest, ordinary citizen freedom of movement.
i.e., this particular freedom had previously been taken away. In Total Recall, the Governator's mind-manipulated character is told that his skull is bugged with a tracking device.
If you want to live, don't hang up.
What do you want?
They've got you bugged. They'll be busting down your door in about 3 minutes unless you do exactly what I say. Don't bother searching. The bug's in your skull.
Who are you?
Never mind. Wet a towel and wrap it around your head. That'll muffle the signal.
How'd you find me?
I'd advise you to hurry. This will buy you some time. They won't be able to pinpoint you.
Shit!
What?
I lost him.
We'll find him.
Yeah, right.
Come on, hurry up. You look beautiful.
He is also given an implement to shove up his nose and remove the tracking device.
I got a weak signal over there. Split up. Find him.
First, let's get rid of that bug in your head. Take this thing out of the case and stick it up your nose. Don't worry, it's self-guiding. Just shove real hard. When you hear the crunch, you're there. Just pull it out. Be careful. It's my head too.
Futurama is an animated series created by Matt Groening, the creator of the worldwide smash hit animated TV series, The Simpsons. The name Futurama suggests that this series may even have been created with predictive programming specifically in mind. In the first episode, Fry is frozen in time and ends up in the year 2999. When he wakes up, he is expected to have a career chip implanted into his hand. The slogan, "You gotta do what you gotta do," is used to justify this totalitarian measure. And what horrors could this mindless slogan not be used to justify? As in the Nuremberg defense, I was just doing my job.
Tough. Lots of people don't like their jobs, but we do them anyway. You gotta do what you gotta do. Now hold out your hand. I'm going to implant your career chip. It'll permanently label you as a delivery boy.
Keep that thing away from me.
Hold still, damn it! I don't have good depth perception. You've got to the count of 5 to let me out of here. 1.
See you in 1,000 years. You owe me one.
There have been numerous other examples of conditioning the public to accept the idea of microchip implants, and we can expect many more as the propaganda machine goes into overdrive in the very near future. Here are a few examples for which a future setting was not deemed necessary. In the animated comedy South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, Eric Cartman has a V-chip implanted in his head as a behavior modification device. How do they come up with these names? The chip gives him a painful electric shock whenever he swears. The V-chip, thanks to some sort of South Parkian malfunction, ultimately enables Cartman to save the world from Saddam Hussein and Satan.
Wait a minute, this chip somehow knows if the child is swearing?
It's just like a lie detector. You see, certain things happen to you when you swear, just like when you lie. The chip picks up on this and gives the subject a little prick. Patient B5, would you step out here, please? Patient B5 here has been fitted with the new V-chip.
Oh, my head hurts.
Don't worry about that. Now, I want you to say, doggy.
Doggy.
Notice that nothing happens. Now say, Montana.
Montana.
Good. Now, pillow.
Pillow.
All right. Now I want you to say, horse.
Go ahead, Eric. It's all right. Horse fuck. That hurt, goddammit! Ow! Fuck!
Now I'd like you to say, big floppy donkey.
No!
Success! The child doesn't want to swear.
This isn't fair. You send a big...
We will start putting V-chips in all our children next week.
In Mission Impossible 2, a transponder chip is implanted into Naya Nordhoff Hall to track her location by satellite. The team is then able to use their computer to obtain a visual feed of Naya via the satellite.
We can then track you to within 3 feet. Anywhere.
In The Bourne Identity, Jason Bourne has an implant containing details of a Swiss bank account removed from his hip.
What are you doing? God damn it, where am I?
A boat! A fishing boat. You were in the water. We pulled you up.
What water?
You were shot. See there, the bullets. Oh. Look, there is a number for a bank. Why was it in your hip?
Hip?
Why was it in your hip? Yeah, in your hip, under the skin.
Oh, God.
Huh?
Oh,
You need to rest. Wait, please, slow down. I'm a friend. I'm your friend. Huh? My name is Giancarlo. Who are you? What's your name? What's your name?
I don't know. Oh, God.
In A Beautiful Mind, one of schizophrenic mathematician John Nash's hallucinations involves him being implanted with a radium diode.
This may be a little uncomfortable.
It's got a little zap to it, doesn't it? He just implanted a radium diode. Don't worry, it's safe. The isotope decays predictably. As a result, these numbers change over time. They're the access codes to your drop spot.
In CSI Miami, episode 305, Legal, a young girl is found dead. She is identified by the Vera chip in her shoulder. This is another blatant example of the collusion between different tentacles of the octopus. A TV program providing free advertisement for a very sinister company that needs all the help it can get to ensure that its product can, quote, slowly but surely work its way into the mainstream.
In the shoulder.
Implant of some sort.
It's like a microchip.
No, I know they put them in cars, even dogs. But this is a first for me.
I don't think that's a tracking device, though, is it?
Why else would you have a microchip implanted under your skin?
They have their credit card numbers built into the chip. Chase Shaw, I own this club.
You're kidding us, right?
These girls were next to nothing. They have nowhere to put their credit cards, so they get them implanted. We zap them on the way in, collect the cover charge.
Oh my goodness, that tickles.
Right this way.
Thank you.
It's like a sun pass. Half the clubs in Miami are using them.
You recognize this girl?
Like I told you, Detective, they're all the same. Skinny, rich, entitled.
Alex, I'll be at the AV lab. Have Callie process the young lady.
You got it.
And the Manchurian Candidate, Ben Marco, played by Denzel Washington, cuts a microchip implant out of his own back.
Jesus, where's the lemon? Okay.
You okay in there?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You know, I left you some towels in there. Did you see them?
Uh-huh.
What was that?
Dropped my bag.
Ben? Are you okay in there? Earth to Ben.
Yeah.
You sure everything's all right?
Yes.
Ben?
Ah.
Ben?
Ah.
Ben? Ben? Ben?
What are you doing?
Did you see that? What I had in my hand. I wasn't hallucinating, Delp. I held it in my hand.
That's what they all say, Marco. Some wicked shit got sprayed on you guys during Desert Storm, besides all the depleted uranium, I mean. I personally know of a couple of rangers who swear that they see only in tertiary colors now.
Delp.
And can pick up sports talk radio in their cortical block if they get too close to a COM-8 transformer.
It's not Gulf War syndrome.
The Army did try this tiny implantable ID thing. You could embed it under the skin and scan it like a barcode for medical emergency information. Blood type, DNA.
Well, the Army never put one in me.
That you know of, man. That you know of.
And he bites another one out of the back of a fellow mind control victim, Raymond Shaw. Raymond Prentice Shaw. There are also brain implants in this movie, but that's a different video.
Somebody put an implant inside me. I found it this morning. I got the hole in my back if you want to take a look at it. And I got a good feeling they put one in you, too.
Nobody's put anything in me, Ben.
Let's prove it. Why don't, we'll go get an X-ray.
I want to be supportive of you. I do. But don't you think this could wait till after the election?
Why? For what? For what? What are you scared of?
I'm not afraid of anything.
Then why don't we just prove it when we can find out?
I think you should leave. I'm sorry. I really do.
Listen, somebody got into our heads with big steel-toed boots, cable cutters, and a chainsaw, and they went to town. Neurons got exposed, and circuits got rewired. Our brain cells got obliterated, Raymond. Please.
You need to get help, Ben.
What are you doing?
Congressman!
Come on, get him!
Bit him, keep bit him. Get him out of here. Get out of here.
In Casino Royale, the great James Bond is chipped. So you can keep an eye on me, he asks.
Ow.
But of course, Mr. Bond.
So you can keep an eye on me?
Yes.
Having built up an enormous worldwide following over the last 48 years and 22 movies, James Bond was an obvious trump card to play for the invisible government. mentioned earlier by the father of modern-day propaganda, Edward Bernays. The only surprise is that it took them so long. Thousands of people of all shapes and sizes, young and old, are crazy about James Bond, so to speak. And if being shipped is good enough for Mr. Shaken Not Stirred, then unfortunately it's probably good enough for some of his fans too. Even the Oscar-winning sensation Slumdog Millionaire casually slipped in a reference to the microchip implants, subtly associating them with an increase in intelligence, or at least an increased ability to answer questions in a general knowledge quiz by cheating.
So, we wired up mobile or a pager, a cuffing accomplice in the audience, or microchip under the skin? Huh?
The chip is not here.
Not here?
No.
Okay, leave the chip. Leave the chip. Leave the chip. It's hot. And my wife is giving me hell. And I've got a desk full of murderers, rapists, extortionists, bum bandits, and you. So why don't you save us both a lot of time? And tell me how you cheated.
I'm done, sir.
Now listen. Hello? He's unconscious, Chuti. What good is that? How many times have I told you Srinivas?
I'm sorry, sir.
Wow, Srinivas. Now we'll have Amnesty International here next, being in their pants about human rights.
In Season 3 of Heroes, Episode 14, A Clear and Present Danger, the Japanese character Hiro gives himself and his friend Ando a GPS implant, in case either of them is ever kidnapped. Coincidentally, Hiro was indeed kidnapped almost immediately.
俺にとって大切な人の名前。パスワード入力後、GPS 一色でお前の居場所を地球上どこでも追跡できるんだ。
GPS 移植って？
これ。
ああ！なんてことするんだよ。
心配ないよ。俺も自分自身でやったから。1時間ぐらいしたら痛みが消える。
お前気が狂ってるよ。いい加減にしろ。誰か他のスーパーヒーローを探してくれよ。
見つけたぜ。安藤、こちらヒロ応答せよ。そこにいるのは分かってんだ。なんとか言ってくれ。注射したことは悪かった。謝る。でも絶対に後で感謝するって保証する。
いや、俺はしないね。
ほら見ろ、動くじゃん。お前今どこ？
お前に言われた通り悪と戦ってるよ。
おお、動いた。お前と安藤サイクルを今見ている。お前は悪とは戦っていない。お前は今ストリップクラブにいる。お前力を何分となく正義のため使えよ。
サンドサークルが女の子たちに敵なんだね。
お前には使命があるんだ。
乗るか？
俺が前あったように力を世界のために使う義務、そして悪を見つけ次第滅ぼす。おい、何？
ヒロ大丈夫か？ヒロどうした？ヒロ！
In Season 2 of Fringe, Episode 9, Snakehead, Walter Bishop implants a tracking device in his own neck to ensure that he doesn't get lost again, despite being a middle-aged genius, albeit an eccentric one.
What time is it, Walter? I want so badly to be independent again. To live like a man, not a child. Not to have my son watching after me all the time. Not that I don't appreciate all that you do for me. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Walter, let me finish. I've been out of the institution for a year now. And I've just begun my journey back towards being whole. But I fear there are still times when I will get lost. So I have implanted a tracking device in my neck.
You did what?
Oh, Walter. And here is the transponder. So you can find me. I should let you get back to sleep.
Good night, Walter.
Good night, my son.
As with J.J. Abrams' other hit TV program, Lost, after the end credits we hear and see the words, the name of the production company. In Terry Gilliam's Time Bandits, the character representing evil or the devil talks about gaining knowledge and becoming a god. He goes on to suggest that the microchip and the silicone revolution can and will be used for evil purposes.
Are you unable to escape from this fortress?
It's a good question. Why have I let the Supreme Being keep me here in the fortress of ultimate darkness? Because you... No, shut up. I'm speaking rhetorically.
Oh, of course.
I let him keep me here in order to lull him into a false sense of security.
Ah, clever. Clever.
When I have the map, I will be free, and the world will be different, because I have understanding.
Understanding of what, Master?
Of digital watches. And soon I shall have understanding of video cassette recorders and car telephones. And when I have understanding of them, I shall have understanding of computers. And when I have understanding of computers, I shall be the Supreme Being. God isn't interested in technology. He knows nothing of the potential of the microchip or the silicon revolution. Look how he spends his time. 43 species of parrots. Nipples for men.
Slugs.
Slugs? He created slugs. They can't hear, they can't speak, they can't operate machinery. I mean, are we not in the hands of a lunatic? Sir, look! If I were creating a world, I wouldn't mess about with butterflies and daffodils. I would have started with lasers. 8 o'clock, day one. Sorry.
In Season 5, Episode 20 of The Simpsons, The Boy Who Knew Too Much, Principal Skinner is frustrated at the inconclusive findings after investigating Bart's suspicious excuse note. Skinner sees electronic tracking implants as the solution to his problem.
As I write with, signed Mrs. Simpson. You were right to be suspicious, Edna. To the crime lab. Inconclusive. I wish more students had agreed to these electronic tracking implants. We only had one volunteer.
In Universal Soldier Regeneration, Commander Topov wants to guarantee the safety of himself and his men. This is done by implanting microchips in them all. This sequel, written by former Mossad agent Viktor Ostrovsky, features both Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, the actors from the original 1992 blockbuster.
I have to guarantee the safety of my men, as well as my own.
It'll be taken care of.
So you want to wait? Then I guess the wire transfers can wait as well. What's the hurry, right?
Miles.
Yes, Doctor.
The General's son is growing anxious. He'd like to be microchipped this instant. It can't possibly wait.
I'm nobody's son anymore, Doctor. It is Commander Topov.
Oh, right.
I've done it to myself. It does hurt a little bit now.
Maybe for you.
Failsafe is active, sir.
Satisfied?
No, my men.
Fine. Round them up.
There is another example that deserves a special mention because of its context and the implicit suggestion within the overall message. In the opening scene of Conspiracy Theory, taxi driver Jerry Fletcher, played by Mel Gibson, talks to his passengers about various conspiracies, which happens to include a mention of George H.W. Bush's famous New World Order speech.
I mean, George Bush knew what he was saying when he said New World Order. Remember those three little words, New World Order?
It is a big idea, a new world order.
At one point, he is talking to a lady with a dog about the chipping of pets for identification and tracking purposes. He goes on to make the point that
The chip for identification so they can track down an animal anywhere he's at, you'll insert it under the dog's skin, and it's kind of like an identification thing. I mean, it's only a small, logical step till they start putting it in us and our children. And then, before we know it, my God, they'll probably come with the pretext. Oh, sure, yeah. Hey, is that one of those new hundreds?
in the movie, Fletcher is made out to be a kook in a number of ways, despite the fact that he is actually a victim of a very real CIA mind control program called MKUltra. Perhaps the most obvious tactic used to make the lead character appear kooky is the title of the movie itself, a derogatory label repeatedly used by the media to describe and hence to ridicule any hypothesis which contradicts the authorized version of events, whether or not the authorized version has been proven to be false, and whether or not the alternative hypothesis is based on verifiable facts. This kind of manipulative propaganda technique betrays the actual purpose of the mainstream media. The term conspiracy theorist is also used by the professional shills, often as a synonym for someone who is either hopelessly naive or mentally ill or both, as though at some point in the recent past, organized large-scale conspiracies suddenly and inexplicably became impossible. Of course, the term conspiracy theory is never used to describe one of the government's own conspiracy theories, reported to us by the dominant propaganda arm of Bernays' invisible government, mainstream TV news, because that would negate the general public perception that has been put into place over the last few decades, largely since November 22nd, 1963, that a conspiracy theory is wrong because it was not reported by the mainstream media, as opposed to a rejection based on any kind of analysis of the information presented. If this general perception was not sufficiently in place, then President George W. Bush may not have been able to get away with the following noticeably ambiguous statement addressed to the United Nations and anyone willing to listen on November 10th, 2001.
We must speak the truth about terror. Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
The list of examples of mind farming given here is not exhaustive. It does not include the various TV news items, for example, which are essentially advertisements disguised as pseudo-debates on behalf of the viewer or consumer. But there are enough to make the point. We are being propagandized to participate in a diabolical agenda. To say that this agenda does not have our best interest at heart could be the understatement of the millennium, even at this early stage. We can expect more of the same from an increasing number of sources, as the aforementioned invisible government attempts to persuade us, first, that being chipped is desirable, and then, normal. This would also increasingly imply that not to be chipped is to be abnormal, which can be unbearable for some. We have already seen a globally recognized hero being chipped, namely Bond, James Bond. It's only a matter of time until the non-fictional world of celebrity, if such a thing exists, gets involved. One endorsement from a David Beckham or a Beyoncé, and or any of the other mega prostitutes out there, and being chipped will suddenly become cool, or perhaps double plus good. The power of celebrity nowadays is such that a lot of young people imitate the stars they have chosen to follow. Some fans of celebrities will dress like them, cut their hair like them, talk like them, and behave like them. It isn't difficult to predict that fans of certain celebrities could be nudged towards being chipped like them too. After all, there's no point in creating the collective insanity that is the cult of celebrity worship if you're not going to use the more reliable stars to spellbind their adoring public when called upon. The more people agree to be chipped, the more likely it is that the economic and technological infrastructure of the world will eventually operate on the assumption that citizens are chipped. At the time of writing, people can go to certain clubs and pay for things with an implanted chip, which is the first step. The obvious next step is simply a gradual increase in the number of places that accept this method of payment. And then we are potentially moving towards the troubling situation of only having the option of using an implanted chip to pay for goods and services. The introduction of a cashless society would clearly be another unwelcome milestone to look out for, and some recent articles from different countries suggest that it could be well on its way. We've all managed to land in a critical period in history, and our actions will affect the outcome. It can be easy to forget that all of us do actually have power, and we are constantly reminded that we have no say in the machinations of the New World Order. But we do. This is not my agenda, and it's not your agenda. In fact, almost everybody who could be affected by it will never meet the people who are responsible for it, or even know their names. But to pull this agenda off, they need us to go along with it. The successful implementation of the human microchipping agenda, like every other aspect of our increasingly apparent enslavement, necessitates the acquiescence of the majority. The powers that be need the people to comply. And legally speaking, silence connotes consent. We must not be silent. We have been handed the bread and circuses that surround us for the specific purpose of distracting us, and it's worked. We willingly give away our power, wasting our own energy being hypnotized by the TV, playing video games, watching sports, reading the latest bestseller, voluntarily giving our time away to be numbed and dumbed down. Imagine the effect of diverting just a fraction of a percent of the totality of the wasted energy worldwide into the fight for the freedom of all. Even the most diehard sports fan would be somewhat reluctant to put forward the argument that sports are more important than freedom. Every one of us has an individual voice to claim back and utilize. And when the people come together, united in a common cause, the collective voice can become an almighty roar that just keeps growing louder and louder. When that unified voice is loud enough, it cannot and will not be ignored, and we the people can become an unstoppable force. We have the power to make that happen. We have the power to help other people realize what's at stake here. We the people have the power to tap into the millions of man-hours that are wasted away every day of the year and to put it to use fighting for our freedom before it's too late. We have the power to demand freedom. We must use that power before it's too late. As political activist Mario Savio said,
"There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart, that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all."
Perhaps later on we can look into who owns and runs the machine, and whether or not we as humans are willing to tolerate that particular arrangement. Until that time, we all have the power to insist that we the people will not be chipped.
The hard times have changed, don't you say? But I keep holding on to you. It's hard to keep the faith alive day to day, leaning on the strength I found in you. You're the hope of all the earth. You are my hope. Beyond what I can see or comprehend, etching your eternity.